Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Tuesday, September 23rd, and we have a lot to discuss on the Shannon Joy Show. Not left, not right, just the truth every day, straight up, no chaser, independently platformed on dozens of platforms across the United States of America and the world. We are so glad to be with you live on Rumble, live on Twitter, Spreely TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, the Died Suddenly platform, the Shannon Joy platform on Twitter, Facebook, Substack, you name it, we are there. We're also on YouTube. And you guys look great on the live chat today on Rumble. If you have a question or comment, please put that in all caps so that we can see it. And maybe we can get to some of your comments at the end of the show. Please give us a big thumbs up, a like, a comment on Rumble. That helps us grow the audience here in the Shannon Joy Show. And of course, a huge thank you to our sponsors. You're going to be hearing from the amazing sponsors of the Shannon Joy Show throughout this program. Please consider them, patronizing them for their products or services, because that helps us, again, to grow this platform. You can see from the headlines today, we are going to welcome the great Matt Kibbe into the Joy Virtual Studio just a little bit later in the program. He is a free market economist of the Austrian persuasion. He's also a free speech absolutist. And Matt Kibbe and I found ourselves in the unfortunate position last week of having to defend, of all people, Jimmy Kimmel and ABC News on the basis of free speech. Of course, we don't agree with anything that he platforms. He was particularly vile during the dark days of COVID lockdown and the rollout of the COVID bioweapons, when he suggested that people who didn't have the COVID shot shouldn't get life-saving surgeries and be ostracized from society in general. So yeah, that was quite uncomfortable, but it was the right thing to do. And yesterday, you saw in the headlines, Jimmy Kimmel will be regaining his position on ABC News. I think it's the right thing to do, despite the fact that I disagree with him on nearly everything, because political speech in the United States of America needs to be protected. We are going to talk with Matt Kibbe about free speech. We're going to talk with him about free markets and, unfortunately, the weaponization of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Just days, weeks after this tragic event, the right and the left are using this event to score political points and to move political agendas, in addition to raising an astronomical amount of money for political purposes. Is it right? Is it wrong? We're going to have a long conversation with the Matt Kibbe in just a little bit right here in the Shannon Joy Show. He will be live with us. You can follow him on Twitter at @mkibbe. But first, I do want to talk about the news of the day. I have a couple videos for all of you. I see you, Mark the Reagan, on the live chat. And Mark the Reagan wants us all to eat crow because of yesterday's press conference. We told you about that yesterday, a press conference with Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump, big announcements on autism and what is causing the autism epidemic in the United States of America. I watched virtually all of that press conference. And according to Mark the Reagan, Donald Trump got up and all but admitted that vaccines cause autism. Now, that's a little bit extreme. I have a lot of thoughts on that press conference. I'm going back and forth. I will acknowledge to Mark the Reagan that it is a victory that the word vaccine is even used in proximity of the word autism, particularly from a press conference from the United States government and the Secretary of HHS. I will acknowledge that this is a move in the right direction. I started on the path to promote parental authority, parental consent, freedom of choice, informed consent when it comes to vaccines almost 10 years ago. And we have never had this type of conversation pushed into the fore. However, I do believe that the only reason they had this press conference and that we are having this discussion is because of the relentless pressure from people like Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, Dr. Peter McCullough, Sasha Latipova, Naomi Wolf, and also myself, among others in the medical freedom community, who refused to allow this administration and MAHA make the health crisis in the United States of America about food and additives and cereals and red food dye number 7, right? They tried to do that. It didn't work because we saw through it and we refused to back down, even though we were told to shut up and sit down and called a hate group by people like Dr. Robert Malone, also called out viciously by people like Callie Means. So this is a huge victory for the medical freedom movement and those of you who refuse to stand down and shut up, even though supposedly our guys were in a position of power. So yes, we have dragged them kicking and screaming to the podium. Now, the announcement in and of itself, I am of two thoughts, right? It's like a morsel of truth. I'm glad that Bobby Kennedy Jr. admitted that there may be a correlation between the rate of autism and the childhood vaccine schedule. I'm glad that the president acknowledged that vaccines are not safe for all people at all times, right? So you had a morsel of truth. The problem is, they dump upon that morsel of truth an avalanche of absolute lies and sprinkle it with complete absurdities. And so now we're going to spend the next 2.5 years debating Tylenol, whether or not Tylenol is the factor or the cause of autism, which is not supported by studies and it's not supported by a lot of the studies out there. It was a ton of chaos dumped on what should have been a very simple, a very clear, and a very compelling announcement, right? Trump rambling on about Tylenol and women doing the right thing, and it was confusing. It was a distraction in many ways. Yes, they did acknowledge that there may be a link with the childhood vaccine schedule, but the takeaway from that press conference, particularly with Donald Trump's own statements, is that vaccines are great. Vaccines are wonderful. There isn't a vaccine that he doesn't love. All of them should be recommended. The only changes that we should make are maybe parents should think about splitting them up. Maybe we should delay the hepatitis B vaccine until age 12. And maybe, right, we should look into that correlation, but we need, some more studies. But the takeaway is that there isn't a vaccine on the market that Donald Trump doesn't love. And the even worse lie was that Operation Warp Speed and the rollout of the COVID-19 bioweapon was one of his greatest achievements, right? So we love the mRNA technology. We love the COVID bioweapons. We love the self-amplifying mRNA technology that they have in the hopper. We love the push to use Operation Warp Speed tactics to create a new universal vaccine, which we know that Jay Acharya is pursuing. So nothing really changes other than a press conference that is now going to distract everyone for years over Tylenol. Now, Peter McCullough, speaking of truth tellers, we need blunt truth tellers out there. And Peter McCullough immediately came out after, it was within minutes, less than an hour of this press conference, saying very clearly, the cause of autism is not Tylenol. It is the vaccines, the childhood vaccine schedule. And the childhood vaccine schedule, every one of those vaccines, whether it's measles, mumps, rubella, DTaP, polio, the flu shot, you name it, they are all dangerous, especially to small children. They can all cause very severe adverse injury and death in a subset of children. In fact, they are all unavoidably unsafe. And so what they're acknowledging in this press conference is that we are going to persist and continue with the childhood vaccine schedule, though we might tweak it a little bit. And we are going to acknowledge and accept the fact that thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of children will be injured, laid down as a sacrifice to herd immunity and the pharmaceutical industry. Whether it's children who die immediately after routine childhood vaccination or children who are completely and utterly injured by these vaccines, right? They're talking about removing aluminum and mercury. Mercury has already been removed from most vaccines, and so has aluminum. So what is the point of all of this? Dr. Peter McCullough said this: the pathway to developmental regression begins with vaccines, not with acetaminophen. Tylenol used for fever control for 60 years. Confounding by indication, likely behind the association, a leading cause of Tylenol use during pregnancy is maternal vaccination that started about 25 years ago, and also treating children who have recently been vaccinated with Tylenol to reduce inflammation. This is why Tylenol is indicated and is as the real driver of encephalitis, which is the reaction, one of the most common reactions to COVID, or to not just to COVID vaccines, but to routine childhood vaccines. Swelling of the brain, which can cause seizure disorders. It can cause great discomfort for babies and children. And yes, it can lead to autism-like symptoms and serious neurological disorders, among other things. And so this is really a red herring. Again, a morsel of truth. Maybe vaccines can cause injury and death among children, but that's it. We get nothing else. We're gonna study Tylenol. We're gonna investigate Tylenol. And then, as I mentioned, an avalanche of mistruths. And please do not forget the fact that they are planning on creating a brand new universal vaccine, a slew of new universal vaccines that will likely replace the childhood vaccine schedule that we're discussing today, right? So I go back and forth as to whether this is a victory. The fact that we're talking about it is a huge win. The fact that it's even acknowledged by President Trump and RFK that vaccines could cause routine, or that could cause childhood injury and death, is definitely a victory. But when you dump so many lies on top of those truths, it dilutes the truth and makes things even more difficult. And it leads to analysis like this from people who I really appreciate. Toby Rogers, he said Secretary Kennedy should call an emergency meeting of the ACIP to vote on one question. The pediatric vaccine schedule should be updated as follows. Hepatitis B vax moved to 12. MMR given as 3 separate shots. Those aren't even on the market, by the way, guys. They don't even have a separate measles, mumps, or rubella shot on the market, to my knowledge. Okay, among other things. So now we're directed. We need a study on Tylenol. We need to adjust ACIP. We need to adjust the childhood schedule, but still recommend it without giving parents true informed consent, without acknowledging or letting them know about death and injury as a result of childhood vaccines, without studying the mechanism of harm, without removing pharmaceutical liability protections, which are driving this whole problem, and without getting rid of medical mandates. Millions of children across the country are forced to get vaccines as a condition of entering preschool, parochial schools, Christian schools, private schools, Catholic schools, and public schools. And that's in well over, or just slightly less than a dozen states. They haven't solved anything. They could have so easily stood up and presented real data, real studies, peer-reviewed studies showing a direct correlation between encephalitis, inflammation of the brain, and routine childhood vaccines leading to autism. They could have made that statement very clear using data. But instead, They made a vague statement and dumped zero data and a bunch of lies on top of it. Is that a win, Mark the Regan? I don't know. And I appreciate Toby. I appreciate the people out there who are desperate to celebrate wins. But these moves won't fix anything. First of all, it ensures that millions of babies will continue to receive dozens of shots without informed consent, and many will die or become injured from adverse reactions. And that is happening today, despite that press conference yesterday. And that will be happening for the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, as we sit back and wait for them to find a study that might connect childhood vaccines to autism. And that's just autism. What about all of the other devastating neurological and physiological adverse events that are caused by routine childhood vaccines? Guillain-Barré syndrome, neurological disorders, seizure disorders, inflammatory disorders, autoimmune diseases. They didn't address any of that. Second, as I mentioned, HHS under Bobby Kennedy and Jay Bhattacharya have hundreds of new mRNA and saRNA shots in the hopper. And as I mentioned, Jay Bhattacharya is touting a new universal vaccine platform to be developed using Operation Warp Speed style tactics. These are far more dangerous and deadly than any of the routine childhood vaccines, but of course, they don't contain aluminum or mercury. And they'll all be covered by immunity protection and liability protection for pharmaceutical corporations. The only way to fix things, guys, is to tell the truth. And this administration and this HHS administration are incapable of just telling simple truths. The only way to fix things is to tell the truth about vaccine toxicity and then allow people to make truly informed decisions. They should remove all liability protections for vaccine manufacturers and pharmaceutical corporations. They should ban all medical mandates permanently. They should require physicians to provide full informed consent about all vaccine side effects, injuries, deaths, and ingredients. And we should be done with this. That is simple. It is clear, it is easy to do, yet we can't have nice things. They insist on confusing and confounding at every turn. So, Mark the Regan, I will acknowledge a minor win, a slight win. But what we saw yesterday is not the way forward. In fact, it only confuses things. And as I mentioned, tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, millions of babies will continue to be shot up with poisons. And it's very sad. MAV 2022, they have 500 jabs in the hopper. Feds Woody, they could have issued a ruling that mandates are illegal. If vaccines worked, then non-vaxxers are not dangerous. We are going to have a full discussion about this. In fact, Toby Rogers is going to be on tomorrow with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. So glad that we are hosting Dr. Bowden on the Shannon Joy platform and network. She will be giving a full analysis of this along with myself tomorrow, and we will be talking to Toby Rogers as well. So those are my thoughts on that ruling. We are going to go to break. We do have the amazing Matt Kibbe in the Joy virtual studio ready to go. So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to pivot to freedom of speech and free markets and the potential weaponization of the Charlie Kirk assassination in order to usher in a police state. Lots to discuss with Matt Kibbe. But first, I want to talk about an amazing sponsor of the Shannon Joy Show. People ask me every day, Shannon, how do you sleep at night with the relentless news cycle 24/7? It is such bad things all of the time. There are very few silver linings. And what I tell everyone is, well, I sleep like a baby every single night. Number one, because of Jesus and the peace that passes understanding, but also because of melatonin and magnesium. In fact, I have been using melatonin and magnesium together in combination for an amazing night's sleep for many, many years. And my favorite combination is an amazing new product. It is Perfect Sleep Max. This is an amazing product that I have been using, and together, magnesium and melatonin can pack a punch with this amazing blend. It is from Perfect Origins, and it combines L-theanine plus GABA plus dopamine and serotonin promoters plus melatonin and magnesium to relax muscles and the nervous system. This helps you to fall asleep fast. It helps you to stay asleep through the night, which many of us suffer with as we get older. And then, even better, it helps you to wake up completely refreshed. I love this product. And right now, exclusively for the Joy audience, they are giving away this product for free. You can see if you qualify and if you can get the free Sleep Max from Perfect Origins by going to my URL. It's www.perfectorigins.com/SJS/PSM. It is in the live chat. So TJ, if you would not mind popping up that URL into the live chat so that people can grab it easily and quickly, and also pop it right up in the comments right now on the Shannon Joy Show comment page. Right now, they're also offering 25% off plus a 180-day money-back guarantee. You can send this product back completely empty. It's an amazing opportunity for you to try it. I love this product. Melatonin, magnesium, a great combination for a great night's sleep. And you also may qualify for a free bottle of Perfect Sleep Max. Thank you so much to this amazing product. And make sure you click on that URL right now to grab that exclusive Joy offer. We'll be back in a moment to continue this discussion right here on the Shannon Joy Show. One of the missions here at the Shannon Joy Show is to stay healthy. We need to be as naturally healthy as humanly possible so that we can stay out of the medical industrial complex. We don't want to be on pharmaceutical products. We don't want our bodies to be susceptible to viruses or anything that they are subjecting us to. We don't want to have to rely on the medical industrial complex or pharmaceutical companies in order to exist and survive. And that means daily, like a lifestyle of healthy living and getting the nutrients that we need. And as you guys know, collagen is a regular part of my daily routine for health. It's also now a part of my husband, devastatingly handsome Dr. Joy's daily routine as well. And this is because it is known as the crucial building block for your bones, your joints, muscles, tendons, and ligaments, as well as your skin, hair, and nails. So as we age, we just stop producing. We don't stop producing collagen, but it really slows down. You need to put it back in your body. And this is why daily collagen is so very important. And my favorite collagen, of course, is Native Path Collagen. Why? Because it is the best. It is the cleanest. It is 100% grass-fed bovine collagen. So no plant-based anything here. It has one ingredient, nothing else is added. It's hydrolyzed collagen, which is the best kind. It dissolves perfectly into any liquid, hot or cold. It's that clean. It also has only the types 1 and 3 collagens. And as I mentioned, it's sourced only from very, very happy cows, happy, grass-fed, free-range bovine cows. So no marine, egg, or chicken sources at all. It is also the lowest cost on the market per serving with a 365-day money-back guarantee. You will not get better collagen for a lower price point than you will with Native Path, but you have to go to my site, which is getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. That is getnativepathcollagen.com/joy for 45% off. And yes, 95 day? What did I say? 65 day, 365-day money back guarantee. You can send them back empty containers if you don't like it, but you're going to love it. So make sure you get your discount today. Go to getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. We also love our partnership with our friends over at the Satellite Phone Store. In an emergency, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a government-inflicted pseudo-emergency, whatever it is, the more prepared you are, the better off you're going to be, and the better you're going to be able to make decisions for your family that will help you in the long term. And so Satellite Phone Store has been our one-stop shop at the Shannon Joy household for everything that we need to be prepared. Whether it is a solar panel or a generator, they have all sizes of generators that you can use in short term, long term, whether it's the Faraday collection, right? Protecting your devices from EMP, EMF, and also protecting your bodies from EMF radiation, 5G, 4G, 3G, you name it, all the Gs. They have the most extensive line of Faraday products, I think, on the market. And they are the highest quality Faraday you can get. From the blankets, the beanies, and the bags. They are always 10% off when you use the promo code JOY. So go to sat123.com/joy. That's sat123.com/joy. Always use that JOY promo code. It always works. And of course, they have the satellite phones. The best way for you to keep in touch with your loved ones when the lights go out. And as we have seen in recent news headlines, the lights are going out more and more. And as they are taxing our grid with this building of the techno digital gulag, they are using up more and more energy sources. And so many outlets are, you are seeing one story after another of predicted rolling brownouts, blackouts. This is coming. This is going to be a reality in the next 24 months because of the expansion of the technocracy and the data centers. And so this is when, we need to be prepared. That's why you need the satellite phones and all of these preparation materials. So sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy. Let's bring our good Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Huge thank you to our sponsors over at Colonial Metals Group. Right now, quickly, and this was from Zero Hedge today, Jefferies is putting gold at 6,600, but M2 is now pointing to 12,000. Gold and silver surging again as instability rages in the United States of America. Unfortunately, this administration has not touched the fundamentals of this market. What is distorting the United States market? The currency distortions, fiscal policy, monetary policy. Unfortunately, the Biden era budgets are being recreated by the Trump administration. And this is why we're seeing rampant inflation. This is why we are seeing dollar devaluation. And this is why we are seeing BRICS nations, China, Russia, Brazil, India, South Africa, coming together and creating new partnerships. This is all pressing on the dollar as a world reserve currency, and that is necessarily moving people into gold. It's not too late for you to get into gold, whether it's physical gold or silver in a safe in your home or in a safety deposit box, or backing up your retirement with physical gold and silver through a company like Colonial Metals Group. I've been working with the folks over at Colonial for almost 2 years. They're amazing people. I buy my gold from them. I have my gold IRA through Colonial Metals. I've gone through the process. It's much easier, faster than people think. And I have that peace of mind knowing that if anything happens, whether it's to the stock market or our currency, as a result of these government interventions into the free market, that I'll have a hedge, I'll have a bridge. My family will be protected because, as we know, gold moves in the exact opposite direction of government instability and insanity. And so this is why I am so appreciative of the folks over at Colonial Metals Group. Right now, you can check them out. Call their 800 number. They have a live person standing by, ready to talk to you, answer any of your questions. Again, it's way faster and easier than I ever imagined to begin to back up your retirement with an individual self-directed IRA backed by physical gold and silver. So thank you to our friends over at the Colonial Metals Group. Please go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy today. That's colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. You can see if you qualify for $7,500 in free silver and also a free safe. So without further ado, I am so pleased to welcome into the Joy Virtual Studio for the very first time ever someone that I have been a fan of for many, many years. He is a freedom absolutist. He is a libertarian. He loves free speech and free markets and is one of the most articulate defenders of the Austrian School of Economics and basic free market principles, freedom in general. Of course, he's Matt Kibbe. You know his name, and he's joining us today to talk about free markets, free speech, and the potential weaponization of not only the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but other events that are raging here in the United States of America. No matter how fearful we may be, we have to cling to our liberty and our freedom. And no one knows that better than Matt Kibbe. Matt, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. I'm so glad that you're here today. It's great to see you. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, the 24-hour news cycle is absurd, relentless, like a fire hose in my face every day. But, you know, I think that beacon of liberty, just, you know, focusing on basic liberty and our basic founding principles, something that keeps me sane. And I know it's something that has always been important to you. I commend you for sticking to that, even as we have supposedly our guys in political office who are supposed to love the Constitution. It's something that you have defended. And I appreciated you last week when you and I were kind of in the unfortunate position of defending Jimmy Kimmel and ABC. But that's when I reached out to you and said, hey, enough is enough. It's time to get you on the program. What do you make of the recent decision? You know, Jimmy Kimmel is going to be back live, I believe, tonight on ABC. But what did you make of the move last week that was pushed by this administration, the FCC, but tragically often also applauded by so many of our friends and colleagues who supposedly believe in free speech and are against government censorship?
You know, I had to go back and actually dissect the timeline as to when Brendan Carr spoke up and was clearly jawboning and threatening ABC and Disney to get rid of Kimmel. And everybody got the timeline wrong because they had a preconceived narrative about what was actually happening. They were hoping that Jimmy Kimmel was getting canceled for the obvious reasons. He's not funny. He's not performing well. And his comments about Charlie Kirk's death were just poorly timed. It honestly wasn't quite as bad as I think some people made it out to be, but it wasn't a joke. It wasn't funny. It was stupid and ill-timed and offensive. But in the process of all this, and I talked about this online, and I was trying to convince MAGA fans that the thing that the FCC accomplished in doing was making Jimmy Kimmel, who should have been fired for cause, not performing, into a martyr, right? And now he's some sort of free speech martyr, which is comical if you know his history and the way that he very gleefully celebrated the deplatforming of COVID skeptics, the deplatforming of anybody that questioned the government narrative. And now he's a free speech martyr. So my read today is that ABC and Disney are going to leverage this new narrative that Jimmy Kimmel is some sort of hero to try to get people to watch the show again. And it's like, can't we just let the market work? Do we have to actually use the same tactics as the left? I mean, we know what the Biden administration did in jawboning social media. We know that corporate media doesn't allow dissonant voices on there, but we're supposed to be the free speech guys. We're supposed to actually believe in the power of people and markets and accountability to actually work through the process. And the Trump administration blew it.
What do you think was the impetus for FCC Commissioner Carr to go on live television with Benny Johnson and directly threaten ABC affiliates with retaliation if they didn't get it right on the Charlie Kirk issue? Was it a mistake? Was it ham-fisted? Was it purposeful? Like, I got the sense that, and given the context and everything that we've seen from this administration post Charlie Kirk assassination, we've seen from Trump himself outright threats to throw out reporters if they say mean things to him or if he doesn't like them. We have seen multiple pieces of legislation, the Charlie Kirk free speech bill, which establishes censorship panels and fines on very ambiguous and broad terms of accuracy and truth. We've seen legislation being championed by Marco Rubio and introduced that would, further restrict free speech. We have seen now the FCC commissioner with these threats. To me, at least Joe Biden had the decency to hide what he was doing, which you reported in your blockbuster piece, The Cover Up, which people can find linked in. It's about what went down with the censorship and the fraud that was COVID and the rollout of the shots. But at least the Biden administration had the decency to hide what they were doing. What we're seeing now, to me, is far more disturbing because it is out in the open. These are full-scale threats, and it almost seems as if this administration, or in some way, is trying to normalize this and just get the American people to acknowledge that the government is going to smash you if you say things that go up against their official narrative. And one other thing about Jimmy Kimmel, while I do think he's vile and horrifying, I agreed with him on this one point. I don't believe the government narrative right now about what went down with the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I think that many more Americans are beginning to see that based on the absurdity of some of the narratives coming out. We don't have to talk about that. That's a very important, political statement to say, I don't trust the government. I don't trust the FBI. I don't trust your narrative. But that was the one that they tried to suppress. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I do want to go down that rabbit hole just for a minute. And I think it was starting with the Las Vegas mass shooting. I decided that I no longer was going to believe the government story about any shooting, particularly when it's a lone kid that somehow manages to find himself on a rooftop with all of these professionals and all of these agencies doing that. I just don't believe it. And I don't know what the story is yet, but I think we should all demand a very clear and persuasive story based on evidence coming from the FBI and everybody else. And we absolutely haven't gotten that yet. And I think, you were talking about this earlier, and it kind of goes without saying, the only way that we're going to get anything good out of our governing class is by relentlessly demanding it and driving the narrative from the outside, not the inside. I'm not going to wait for Kash Patel to tell us what happened. I think it's going to happen through citizen investigators dissecting the films and looking at angles and all that stuff that I've spent way too much time in the last week looking at, trying to make sense of why someone would assassinate Charlie Kirk. But to your question, there was a senior Trump administration official, I think it was Stephen Miller, I'm pretty sure it was, who said, quoting Barack Obama's mentor, never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think they are very much the people that want to be censorious within the Trump administration. And by the way, so many people in an administration were there before he got there. So let's not forget that a new administration comes in and you have all these people that have been working on these agendas, like a censorship agenda, through past administrations. These are career bureaucrats, the so-called deep state. These are people with an agenda other than liberty always. And it does appear that a number of these guys are exploiting Charlie Kirk's death, ironically, because I think Charlie is spinning in his grave right now, thinking that somehow his murder could be used to impose the same sort of censorship that he so adamantly and personally risked his life to oppose. So that's a really wild thing. I think that a lot of these guys, we'll talk about the FCC chairman for a minute. Was it conscious? Was it ham-fisted? Was it mistake? Was it a mistake? I think he's going on Benny Johnson and he wants to beat his chest and show what a tough guy he is.
Yeah.
And in the process created a legal narrative that very much looks like jawboning, which, should it come to litigation, is going to create a real problem for the Trump administration. So it was dumb, it was stupid, was it conscious? I don't know, but it's not free speech. It is the anathema of what the Trump executive order promised us. And I think all of us, particularly people that were hoping for something better from the Trump administration, should be very loud about opposing it.
Absolutely. And the hits keep on coming. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. A 17-page memo now from the Department of War. They were very, very careful to sign it from DOW. And this is being reported. This one was from NBC, but it's being reported everywhere. Issuing new rules for journalists, saying they can no longer gather or report information from the Pentagon, even if it's unclassified, without government approval. Reporters who refuse to sign the pledge that is being demanded by the DOW will have their Pentagon credentials revoked. And this is from a U.S. attorney. It said that news organizations will be required to acknowledge that disclosing, accessing, or attempting to access sensitive information without authorization could be grounds for having their credentials denied and revoked. But the department, of course, is remaining committed to transparency to promote accountability and public trust. And they made sure to use Department of War, DOW. So they're pushing forward, and it isn't just rhetoric. I mean, did we see anything like this from the Biden administration with the press, or any type of actions from the Obama administration? I mean, I don't recall anything this blatant. Your thoughts?
So I just the most recent episode of the Cover Up features Matt Taibbi, the great Twitter Files journalist, someone I've been a fan of for a long time, and I'm going to answer the question for him, because a big part of what we talked about in that episode was how it is that government agencies and, off the record Pentagon officials and security agency officials can drive the narrative by spoon feeding the journalists the stories that they need to write the story about what's really happening in Gaza, what's really happening in Iraq, what's really happening in Afghanistan. And they become basically the pet of the government agent that controls the flow of information. So when I hear the Department of War, such an Orwellian name for an agency that is supposedly supposed to defend us, not start wars, but I digress. But when I hear them threatening to cut off reporters who don't sort of toe the line, in some ways, maybe that's healthy, right? Because I don't think anything good comes out of reporters going to an official press gaggle at the Pentagon, because they're only being fed propaganda.
It's true.
And to the extent that they get the permission to be there, they have to write the story that they're expected to write. And I think the power of all of this is outside the system. And it's independent journalists like Matt Taibbi who never agree to Pentagon credentials to go in and serve the master. So it's very blatant, it's very explicit, but then again, are you really getting your news from the people in that room anymore? I don't think so. And I think that's a healthy thing, but we got to do it ourselves.
I think it's one of the amazing silver lines and developments out of the dark days of COVID lockdowns, all of the lies, and then the massive intrusions by the Biden administration into our private lives. And so certainly the rise of a true independent media. And as you guys know, this show is independent. That's been very important to me throughout the years, 12 years, and we're supported by sponsors in the audience. I think that seeing more and more independent broadcasters and podcasters, what you're doing with the cover up over at freethepeople.org, what Matt Taibbi or what Taibbi did, which was an extraordinary act of service in his reporting, is something that we absolutely need to support. And I agree with you that the mainstream, and I would say left and right, have really, in my opinion, become corrupted. And that's one of the difficulties of having Donald Trump and the Republicans in power for the most part in Washington, D.C. It neutralizes and renders impotent so many of the voices that would be the clearest and most convincing voices against actions like these, right? When Biden was in office, we were a machine. We were able to push back against this and stop that and shut them down. They really didn't achieve a whole lot during that administration other than driving our economy into the ground. But now that Trump is in office and the Republicans are in office, there's no pushback. In fact, our colleagues, and I don't know who you like and who you don't like, so I don't want to get anyone in trouble or put you on the spot. But last week, it was very demoralizing for me to see people who have upheld the Constitution and the principles of free speech and no censorship were just cheering this on and gleefully encouraging this president to do that with, until people like you and me spoke up and were like, hey, and we got smashed for it, by the way, right? No one likes it when we challenge this administration. But this is from Buck Sexton. He's a conservative. He took over Rush Limbaugh's massive audience, and he co-hosts that daily 3-hour radio broadcast with another fellow. I forget what his name is. I don't listen to it anymore. But anyway, he tweeted this out. Trump has, and this is like a good thing. He's super pumped about this, Matt. He goes, Trump has single-handedly neutralized or destroyed the following media entities: CNN, New York Times, WAPO, CBS, ABC, MSNBC, The Late Night with Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Joy Reid. Who else? Who's next? Right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, if Sean Han, or if a left-wing media person like Joy Reid came out and celebrated Joe Biden single-handedly destroying Fox News, The Blaze, Daily Wire, the Babylon Bee, we would be losing our minds. What do you make of conservative media and where they are right now with this administration? Because I'm increasingly concerned that they're looking the other way when they need to be brave and stand up and challenge this administration when they need to be challenged. But instead it ends up, they're lobbing attacks at us and we're trying to hold the line, and it just gets very convoluted and, as I mentioned, demoralizing. Your thoughts?
The partisan nature. So I'm here in Washington, D.C., and I'm a recovering political activist who tries not to do that stuff anymore, even though once in a while I'm going to be all in on Thomas Massey because that's the hill I'm on. But I'm trying to get away from that stuff. And at For the People, we primarily tell stories. One of the red pills that I had to take very early on in my career was realizing that 99.9% of this town is partisan, and they will switch teams and switch positions on issues at a drop of a hat as long as it's their guy saying the thing. And this happened dramatically during the passage of the Patriot Act, when a Republican did it, colluding with the Democrats. It happened with the Wall Street bailout in 2008, and it happened during lockdowns. And so when I see people that are lifetime advocates of free speech sort of flipping on a dime like that, I attribute it to partisan politics. But that's why independent voices are the most powerful in America right now. And I get the clickbait, Buck's posting for clicks, right? I get that. Mm-hmm. And they're all doing a victory dance about Jimmy Kimmel, although, he's back, right? They didn't do anything. If anything, they made him
Yeah.
into a hero. Um,
Hmm.
but I think the power, and particularly when we're talking to young people, we're talking to the next generation. And I look at podcasters who are the most successful in the business. They're not partisans. They're not
Mm.
BSers. They're actually speaking truth to power. They're allowing for different voices to come onto their shows. They're allowing these conversations to happen. And to bring it back to Charlie for just a minute, um, he's one of the few conservatives that I ever saw willing to go on campus, but not only willing to go on campus, but actually listening to the people, even if they're getting up to the microphone to yell at him and tell him he's a bad person. Um, that is the most persuasive way to spread ideas. And if you don't think your ideas can stand up to that, then you probably don't have very good ideas. But the alternative is this BS partisan narrative that my team is great, and when my team does it, we trust my team. Um, I think they lose more and more Americans when they do that. So I'm sort of rationally pessimistic about everything, but I'm still a bit of a romantic. I believe in the wisdom of crowds. I believe in the ability to figure out stuff for themselves, and I also think that so many of us were red pilled during lockdowns that we're now taking responsibility for knowing what's going on. We're not trusting experts, and by the way, the experts could be the main figures on Fox News. They could be your favorite podcaster. They could be the head of the
Hmm.
FBI, whatever that is. Like, more and more people don't trust that, and I think that's healthy. I think we're in the middle of a real fundamental paradigm shift where people are sourcing their own sources of information. Quite typically will be called conspiracy theorists for not endorsing the official narrative. But by the way, that
Yeah.
phrase conspiracy theorist is a deep state slur that used to be the
Mm.
secret playbook to stop people from speaking truth. So I
Mm.
I sort of wear that as a badge of honor now. Like, I guess I'm one of those guys. I never thought I was, but I guess I am.
Well, Matt, nothing interesting happened in the history of the world that wasn't a conspiracy.
That's right.
Et tu, Brute, go back to, Judas. I mean, every, this idea that conspiracies don't exist is just such an absurdity. It's really just two people coming together and creating a 5-year plan to do something nefarious, two or more people. So I agree with you. And I don't think that conspiracy theorist holds the negativity that it did 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I think that it's really amazing to watch, right? At best of times and worst of times, right? Like, things are so bad, but then you can also see how things are changing. And it's amazing to me how many conversations I have with people, normies, who just go straight to the conspiracy, right? It's just the knee jerk normalized reaction to anything the Biden administration or the Trump administration tells us is to be like, I don't believe you. And to me, I agree with you. That's a huge cultural win, right? Like, I'm not looking for political wins with my program and in my political analysis. I'm looking for cultural wins. I'm looking for those moments where every ounce of propaganda, billions of dollars of propaganda, both the left and the right, levied against the culture, telling them that this is the thing to do. And we saw that with such clarity in the rollout of the bioweapons, the kill shots, when everyone was telling us to get them. Trump was and Biden was. And when the culture said no, and you had a full 35% of the American people who risked their job, their reputations, their family relationships to say, no, we're not getting it. That to me was such an amazing miracle. And it's that, rejection of the two-party paradigm and all of the propagandist, conditioning that to me is like, wow, that's humanity. That's what's real. And so I think that's what I'm hearing from you, that we just need to keep chipping away at the lies and cling to the truth, even though it's scary. And
Well,
we'll be okay. Do you think? Go ahead.
no, like I go, Unfortunately, I've been at this a long time, so I can tell sort of old man stories about this emergence of this I call it a libertarian populist movement that has its roots in the spirit of '76. It goes all the way back. There's something uniquely rebellious about being an American, and I think that spirit is still there. And somewhere around the time of the Ron Paul revolution, and you could go back to Howard Dean's brief attempt to take over the Democratic establishment before that. And from the Ron Paul movement, you could look at the Tea Party movements, and because of technology, because of social media, because of our ability to find out things for ourselves and self-organize and speak up for ourselves, the government has had a more, first of all, that we caught them flat-footed. They didn't know what to make of all these people with opinions, with the ability to express those opinions. And once they figured out what that was, they would go after the leaders, and they would try to take out the leaders because they assumed that the grassroots movement was organized the same way that they were organized from the top down. And then when they
Right.
realized it was more complicated than that, fast forward to the censorship industrial complex that was exposed by the Twitter files, and the willingness of all these alphabet agencies to go after any COVID dissidents. And I'll use that
Mm-hmm.
specific example. They're going after a lot of things, but they're going after COVID dissidents. The granular and ham-fisted way that gray-suited Soviets in the cubicles of the FBI and the CIA and Homeland Security, all these alphabet agencies, were going after Uncle Bob's tweet. Like, what's going on? Like, you're so
Yeah.
desperate now that you have to stop that guy with 15 followers from questioning the COVID shots. They're
Right.
desperate. They're desperate, and it almost looks clownish. I don't know if you know the Coen Brothers movie Burn After Reading, but it looks like a clownish version of these deep state agencies, which can and
Yeah.
are quite deadly and dangerous. But at the same time, they're like, how do we stop Uncle Bob? Got to stop that guy. He can't say that. And so we're at this point where it's getting kind of hard to stop us. And they've tried everything
Right.
now, and we know what's
Right.
coming next, but it's kind of hard to stop us.
Yeah. We did a dramatic reading of the FBI released lover's letter from the shooter to his tranny roommate last week, because it's like, what do you do with that? They're not even trying. You're like, can you, I don't know, maybe hire a millennial to write that? But it's, but to your point, there does seem to be an absurdity to some of this, which is wonderful, but quite frightening, because you mentioned what is next, right? When
Yeah.
we, the people, back them up into a corner and they realize that they can't get away with their lies. They realize we're seeing through the two-party political paradigm. And I think this is when it does get particularly dangerous. And as I told my audience, after the election of Trump, I said, listen, I think we're only halfway through this. I think from my perspective, we have a situation, we have a rogue government, and they're at war with we the people. They want to erase our constitution, and they want to destroy our economy and usher us into whatever their new glorious new economic system is based on, digital things, whatever. But I think we're only halfway through this. I think COVID was step one. And now we're moving into what I think is a little more terrifying, and that is likely some type of economic collapse or economic event, and then the attempt to move us into a digital currency and a digital prison, tied to the social credit scoring, very similar to what we see in China. It's very clear that that's where they're moving with the tech bros and everything that we've seen come out of this administration. We're going to go to break, and I would like to pivot with you into that next step, right? And to the economy, because you are also an economist. You are a free market of the Austrian school economists, and we have, I think, a lot that's going to be thrown at us in the next 6 to 12 months. I really want to hear your perspective on what you think is coming and how you think we can find each other and begin to build that apparatus of resistance, the same type of apparatus that we saw cobbled together during COVID lockdowns. We need to reignite that. And I think you're probably the best person to talk about that. So can we take it in that direction after the break?
Of course. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, so stick around with us, guys. We have the second half of this really amazing. I knew you were going to be great. I cannot believe I haven't had you on before this, Matt. Such a fan. We're going to take a quick break. We will be back to continue this discussion with the great Matt Kibbe right here on the Shannon Joy Show. I am absolutely blessed to be sponsored by this amazing product. This is a miracle. It is the Relief Band. I don't know if you guys have heard me talking about Relief Band. I have it here. I brought it with me. I don't know if you can see it. This is nothing short of a miracle. I have told you all about my daughter, Mimi, and her chronic car sickness since she was a tiny little baby. My poor darling Mimi, every time she got into the car, if she was in for more than 15 or 20 minutes, would get so sick. I think she probably threw up in my car over 200 times from the time she was a year old till she was 4 years old, until she got a little bit older. But even persisting into her teens, every time she gets into the car, if it's too long of an extended period of time, she gets so sick, nauseated, feels like she's going to throw up. And it's been constant. Well, we recently found Relief Band. They're sponsors of the Shannon Joy Show. And I used this with Mimi for our trip to New York City. And it was nothing short of a miracle for nausea, migraines, headaches, morning sickness. If you have a loved one who is pregnant and just suffering with morning sickness, people who are struggling with illness and nausea from chemotherapy, this absolutely tackles it. It's an amazing, patented, clinically proven, FDA cleared technology. And basically how it works, I won't go into it in detail, but this is the Relief Band. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just this little guy. And what you do is you take the gel, you put this gel right on your wrist. You put the Relief Band on your wrist, right? And it sends this little pulse, like this little shock, right, into your wrist. And it essentially, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's magic. We'll get into the science of it in another read. But basically, it sends a signal to your brain. Then it signals to the stomach to reduce nausea and provides immediate relief. It is an amazing, I did not think that this was going to work. They sent it to us. I'm like, there's no way that this thing is going to work. It was a miracle. 6 hours that Mimi spent in the car on our trip without even a smidgen of nausea or headache. It was an absolute miracle. And right now, the Relief Band is 20% off for the Joy audience. So if you are interested, reliefband.com. That's reliefband.com. 20% off with the JOY promo code, and they're going to send you free shipping as well. This is an amazing device. I cannot recommend it enough, especially for people who have dealt with chronic, nausea and headaches. Thank you to our friends over at Relief Band. Again, the website, reliefband.com. That's reliefband.com. Promo code JOY for 20% off. Of course, our sponsors, Colonial Metals Group. I had a conversation yesterday, very well-known, very brilliant economic analyst. And the situation here in the United States of America is dire. Despite what they're saying to you about the golden economy and the golden age here in the United States of America, everyone who knows everything understands that the wheels are falling off this jalopy of an economy. And this is why every American needs a gold and silver strategy, period. End of sentence. If you have waited, if you have delayed in talking to our friends over at Colonial Metals Group because you think you have some time, please reconsider. He was telling me that, and I'm going to get into what he told me, word on the street, but the big news is he's saying within the next couple months to the next 6 to 8 months, we are going to see what he said is a disastrous crash. I mean, worse than the real estate bubble, worse than the dot-com bubble, worse than the situation after the lockdowns of 2020. And it's going to sweep away so many people who are trusting the two political parties investing in Bitcoin and putting all of their eggs in the Wall Street basket. You need to diversify, and the smart money is going into gold and silver, whether it's through a physical purchase, which you can do at Colonial Metals Group, or moving over a portion of your 401k or your IRA into a gold and silver backed, independent, self directed IRA. It's what I have. It is so easy to set up. I didn't have a ton of money. I had a little extra. I set up my IRA through Colonial Metals Group, and now I'm contributing a couple $100 every single month. It's part of my retirement strategy, and it helps me diversify. This is not a recommendation or financial advice for all of you, but it's what I do. And I trust the folks over at Colonial Metals Group. Please do not delay. colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy, colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy, so that you can begin to learn how to diversify, how to protect your retirement and hedge against the corruption and the chaos and the economic catastrophe, which I believe is coming very quickly to the United States of America. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Let's bring back into the Joy Virtual Studio Matt Kibbe. You can follow him on Twitter. His handle is at mkibbe, Kibbe. Please support his organization, freethepeople.org. Amazing, original shows and investigations. It's just an amazing website. I was checking out everything that you're doing. It's great. Also, The Cover Up. You can go. It's an amazing series hosted by Matt on what they did to us in the dark days of lockdown, all the ways it died. A really great piece. If you want to tell everyone a little bit about that before we get into our economic discussion, let us know. Like, tell me about what you found in The Cover Up. We know that these guys were villains and scoundrels, and everything was a lie. But what was your takeaway after that investigation on Free the People?
So, and that project is in partnership with Blaze TV. My show Kibbe on Liberty is also on Blaze TV. So I have a cool partner in those guys. The series, The Cover Up, was actually inspired by a conversation I had with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, I think in 2021, and he sort of casually, where I'm still trying to unpack, like, what on earth is going on. I can't really comprehend the government's response to COVID. And I was, up until that moment, looking at it through the lens of an economist. When they said that they were going to shut down the economy, all of my statements starting in March of 2020 is like, do you have any idea how many people would actually die, particularly people at the margins, if you shut down the economy? Because it's not a switch you can just turn back on. But Jay said something that profoundly changed my trying to figure out how this could happen. And he casually mentioned that there was an explosion of funding for medical research, for bioterrorism agent research, as we came to understand it. The entire NIH, NIAID, all these universities in this ecosystem around it, they were funded because of Dick Cheney's obsession with the war on terror, and because of his belief that you could actually science your way out of any particular bioterrorist threat. And so this series is, and it is a series instead of a documentary, because I didn't know what the end of the story was. And I think I know enough now to tell you what the end of the story was. It was a mad science experiment funded under the auspices of the war on terror that turned into a monster. And that stuff's still going on today. And so it's, well, of course they covered it up because they created it. And of course they created it out of not only the typical things, money and power. Those are typical narratives. But there's also this very dangerous ideology that I think goes back to the origins of what socialism was before Marx made it a violent thing. It was this arrogant belief that there were certain people in society, the scientists, who were smart enough to rationally reorganize society from the top down. Does this sound at all familiar? So it's
Certainly.
both power, money, and just hubris. This belief that, you know, guys like Anthony Fauci, who's actually written about this, he thinks he can bend modernity to make us fit the central plan. So that's what
Mhm.
that series was about, and I think we're seeing the percussions of this, and it's relevant to what people are doing to the economy right now, because there's all sorts of wacky ideas that we used to call socialism. They're not really socialism anymore. It's techno-authoritarianism, but it's all based on this fatal conceit that you could give smart people the reins of power and they could reorganize society from the top down. And there's lots of
Mhm.
flavors, but it's the same
Oh
thing.
yeah. This is how we define it here. I've heard, techno feudalism. I would call it techno fascism or the technocracy. But you do see a very accelerated push for the digital currency, whether it's implemented through a public-private partnership, a la Trump, or a central banking digital currency, a la Biden. The tying of that to a social credit system, a la Elon Musk and what he's building with his platforms. We then have Peter Thiel and Palantir and all of the data centers and the bubble, right? The NVIDIA AI digital tech bubble that they have been inflating now. All of them, intrusions into free market principles, coupled now, and again, and this is again when you compare the Biden administration with the Trump administration, these insider deals, the negotiations for the Trump casino in Dubai and the jets and the pump and dump crypto scams from the Melania coin to the Trump coin, really merging the big government with the big corporate state, which is the definition of fascism, right? At least Biden, again, with Hunter and all of his dirty business, he had the decency to hide it. Once again, we have this new phenomenon where Trump's normalizing it and conservatives are cheering it. They're saying that this is capitalism, right? That this is Trump making great deals for the American people. Well, he's hammering us with tariffs, which conservatives used to hate. Free market people used to dislike tariffs, especially when they're levied on top of income taxes, on top of the devaluation of our currency through money printing and quantitative easing and monetary policy. It's like they're throwing, tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, you're an economist. You understand these things. It's like the Trump administration is throwing everything but the kitchen sink at this economy, the middle class, small to medium sized businesses, and calling it a golden era economy when, I mean, I don't think anyone's buying that. I mean, are you buying it? I'm really curious as to how you think this economy is going and where you think it's coming from, because it's like it's a tsunami. And once again, the typical people that we would see on Fox News that would be ringing the alarm bells, there's just nowhere to be found. Your thoughts?
Best economy ever, obviously, and so like this gets back to so there was an economist named John Maynard Keynes who
Yeah.
famously talked about animal spirits, and he didn't think that the basic rules of economics really mattered when it came to macroeconomic policy, and that you could fake people into doing the right thing for purposes of whatever that macroeconomic policy was. So we talked about animal spirits, and somehow people were fundamentally irrational, and that the only way to get them out of that was to spend ourselves out of pessimism. And if that sounds familiar, that's precisely what we're doing now. I don't know if it's a conscious policy or not. And just let me explain economics, because I think the biggest problem with the economics profession is that they're full of you know what, and they love to use big words, and they love to dazzle people with their very sophisticated, complicated, acronym-driven analysis of the economy. And the reason I'm an Austrian is quite quite basic. The reason Austrian economics matters to me is it's about stories, and it's about metaphors, and it's about simple understanding that every one of us fundamentally gets. The tenets of microeconomics are not a mystery. They're just how people
Right.
behave. And the market, to quote Ludwig von Mises, is not a thing. It's not a place. It's a process. And when he says it's a process of doing exactly what we're doing on this show. A lot of people trying to figure out what's going on in a world that's radically uncertain as we move forward. And through that process of figuring stuff out, we develop rules and things like prices that allow us to allocate resources and do the things that we do. That's a beautiful process. And everything the government does screws that up. And they love to screw it up. They love to manipulate it. They love to get us to try to do things that we wouldn't have done otherwise. So that's the context for where we are today. This is not a creation of the second Trump administration or the Biden administration. You can go back as far as you want, but I would definitely go back to the Wall Street bailout of 2008 as a starting point for when we have been consistently, Republican and Democrat alike, we have been inflating our way out of the spending binge that we have been on by bailing out Wall Street, by bailing out the car companies, and every administration since then has been bailing out whatever their favorite constituency is. And that is a train wreck that will absolutely have a reckoning. Unfortunately for all of us, anybody that's holding these funny dollars in our hands, and we all do, particularly, people of limited means are keeping their savings in their bank account. Every time the government spends more money it doesn't have, they're literally stealing your money. They're stealing your money by expanding the supply of credit, by expanding the printing press is now a metaphor, but they're printing dollars they don't have, which means that every dollar in your wallet is worth less because there's only so much you can tax, there's only so much you can borrow, and the federal government, unlike state governments and unlike a lot of governments elsewhere in the world, has the unique ability to just print money when they spend money they don't have. And that is the basis of everything. This is the basis of the Ron Paul revolution when he was telling us to end the Federal Reserve, because the war machine is not possible without central banking. The social credit system is not possible without central banking. All of these means that they control us is not possible without manipulating the money that's in your wallet. And if you're wondering why they've always gone after gold, if you're wondering why they've always gone after Bitcoin and blockchain technologies, it's because they're afraid of the independence that comes with people not being dependent on fiat currency.
This is something that we've been talking about for quite some time. I think the difference, and they've always seemed to find a way to inflate more, doesn't it seem? For so many years, I've been doing this for 12 years, and you really begin to think like they cannot get away with this for much longer. I think today, though, things are different than they were 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 12 years ago, primarily because of the pressure that we're seeing come to bear from foreign countries that do not want to do business with us anymore. And that's creating this pressure onto the dollar that, we've gotten away with it because the dollar is the world reserve currency. And so we could take out other governments, we could start wars, we can negotiate really great trade deals for us. We can impose tariffs on other countries. And we're seeing, especially because of the tariff actions, because of this president, it's just throwing these second and third world countries who are merging into first and second world countries into each other's arms. They're setting up supply lines. They're setting up trading relationships and partnerships. I just saw yesterday that I think, China has a deal now with India and they're going to buy beans or something. You know what I mean? But we're watching supply lines of global trade shut down because people are sick and tired of the chaos and the dirty dealing of the American government, both parties. And so this does, for the first time for me, move me into a space where they're going to try something. And unfortunately, I love the idea of a decentralized kind of cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, But I actually think they're going to try to use that. I think that, there's a great book, Hijacking Bitcoin, um, talking about how, that crypto has really been institutionalized in a lot of ways. But I think they're going to use that. They're going to trick people into accepting some type of token or digital currency after they just wipe them out. They just completely collapse things, and they're going to say, okay, sorry, you can't pay for your groceries. And it's essentially just going to be food stamps for everything, for your rent, for your clothes, for your food, and completely controllable, programmable, confiscatable, trackable, traceable, connected to the social. And it's like, I guess my question is, do you think that that is a possibility? Is that what you're seeing as well? And if you do, when do you think it's going to happen? Like, how long do you think that they can persist with this? Because to me, it just seems to be just getting worse and worse. I mean, there's a Fox News poll here. This is Fox News in terms of Trump's golden economy. Has Trump administration, this was a couple days ago, made the economy better or worse? Better, 30%, worse, 52%, and same, 18%. So these are his people. These are his guys. Like, if there is one audience that would drink the Kool-Aid and accept the golden economy narrative, it would be a Fox News audience of boomers. And they're not even buying it. So I feel like something has to give. Curious about when you think that give is going to happen and how you think it's going to look.
Yeah, I think you can't, going back to animal spirits, you can't convince people they're doing well when they're not doing well. And unfortunately, to paraphrase Ben Shapiro, which I never do, economics does not care about your feelings.
Right, it's true.
And so you can beat your chest and say everything's great and this is the golden economy, but people know how much groceries cost, and they remember what they used to be able to buy before lockdowns, and they've watched this increasing deterioration of their purchasing power. So they understand what's going on. They may not know exactly why it's happening, but they can't be convinced otherwise. And if I could just set this up, there was a time. So the debate about Trump was always, is a second Trump administration going to be the administration that actually defunds the deep state? And there was reasons to be optimistic, and I like to be optimistic until I can no longer be optimistic about things. And the test of that was the budget, a very boring, very esoteric thing. And the test of that was whether or not they were going to allow the various committees in Congress to do something that is called regular order and pass appropriations bills. Right. And in those appropriations bills, you would actually cut the things that should be cut. And everybody could see what the budget actually was and what the total was. So, like, are we going to eliminate the National Endowment for Democracy? I hope so. We're going to eliminate all of these agencies that have done so much damage to us. They could have done it that way. But what they've done instead is they're doing what Nancy Pelosi did before them and what John Boehner did before that, is they bundle up into this really big thing. And you don't know what's in there. They don't know what's in there, but it's the committee chairman and the administration officials actually putting that stuff in there. And they failed the test when they passed the big, beautiful bill. Right. Massive expansion of debt, massive expansion of spending, literally locks in Biden-level eras of spending for all these things. And they continue to do that. So that was the only test that mattered. And so right now we're just taxing and spending and doing the same things we were doing before. And even the income tax cuts that they extended, that wasn't an income tax cut. It was just an extension of current policy. So from a macroeconomic point of view, you're not going to get a huge boom from a tax cut because it wasn't really a tax cut. It should have been extended forever, but it wasn't a so-called stimulus. So to answer your question, there's limits to this, and in many ways, the behavior of other countries will either continue to bail us out or will expose what we're doing, depending on their interests. Because China is a big player. They have traditionally bought a lot of our debt. We're now in some sort of trade war with them. Their economy is also in a house of cards.
Mhm.
So the way they're going to deal with it is to just replace money with their central bank digital currency,
Yeah.
and that's the future that we must avoid at all costs.
Yeah.
Because the only way out of this is to centralize everything and systematize even more so than the Federal Reserve does the stealing from working people to connected elites both inside and outside of government. That collusion that we saw happen with lockdowns, and the big corporations didn't suffer because they were able to cut a deal with the government. Certain things were not shut down. Certain things were advantaged by lockdowns, and we all saw that process. That's how government works, and that's how they're going to try to solve this problem by dealing with their cronies. But I don't. I just. How do you convince people that this is a good idea? I think you're looking at a hopefully peaceful revolution against this kind of systemic stealing.
I agree. I think it's going to be very similar to COVID, and they're going to make us miserable and lock us down in some way, destroy our economy. And then they're going to say, you have a choice. Take the digital currency or the token or whatever it is, give up, take the digital ID, attach it to your bank account, and then we'll give you, and I think same way with COVID, we're going to need a remnant. We're going to need a minority of people. It does not have to be the majority. It has to be maybe 10%, 15% that say, oh, hell no, we're just not going to do it. And then you barter, you trade, you use cash, you use gold, silver. There are a couple cryptocurrencies out there that I think people like that maybe they can deal with. But I do think it's going to be tumultuous. And I do think there's going to be a choice. I think that we are going to have a choice. And hopefully Americans will be the rebellious Americans of our founding, the rebellious Americans of lockdowns, right? Those, that 25 to 30% that say we're gonna lose a little bit for this, and we're gonna take some heat for this, but we are not gonna back into this. And I think when that happens, then the entire house of cards fails, because all you need is a remnant, and we're running out of time. I wish I could keep you on for so much longer. I share your optimism in that. I think, this is not to be doom and gloom and the sky is falling. It is to encourage people to get prepared so that they're not fearful, to find relationships of trust and people that they're going to stand side by side with, to resist and say no. So I count you as a friend now, Matt Kibbe. I hope you'll come back on my show like all the time, because you're a very important voice right now, a courageous voice standing up. We need more like you. And I say, let's just buckle up and go. Let's go. Let's get ready. Bring it. We're ready for it. And I think in the American tradition, we can withstand this. And from my perspective, I have 3 kids. The reason I do this is that I would like to fight for them to maybe have a couple more decades of freedom. And then it's going to be their fight, and they can do that for their kids. But that's the mission. And I really appreciate you and your voice standing up as we move forward to this, this point.
We can never stop fighting. And as a libertarian in Washington, I'm very comfortable being a lonely minority in that fight. But I have optimistic that there's more of us than we think there are.
Yeah, I give you a lot of credit. A lonely libertarian in Washington, D.C. Man, people thought I was brave for staying in New York. But man, you've got me here. I wouldn't go to DC. So keep up the great work and keep up everything you're doing. How can people find you? How can they support you and benefit from all of the work and the research and the reporting and the investigative journalism that is happening over at Free the People?
If you want to watch the cover up, go to blazetv.com. If you want to follow me, I spend a lot of time on X, probably an irrational amount of time on X. And that's mkibbe. You can find me there. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, go to Free the People. We produce video content because we think storytelling is how you turn on the next generation. We produce documentaries, we produce comedy, we produce economic explainers, including a cool new series called Wrestling with Economics with former WWE star Glenn Jacobs. Everything I'm talking about economics is simply explained there. And there's just a lot of fun stuff. We want to make big ideas fun, engaging, and useful for people in the fight that we're advocating for today.
I love that. freethepeople.org, and follow Matt Kibbe at mkibbe on Twitter. Thank you so much. You must come in again soon. I really appreciate you.
Love to do it.
Okay. Have a great day. All right, guys. the Matt Kibbe. I told you it's been a long time coming, and he's just one of those guys I've been wanting to get on forever. And we finally did it. I'm so glad we did. I mean, he has such an amazing grasp on where we are today in the country. And I think voices like his, independent, unwilling to submit to the left or the right, but just the truth, so very important. So I'm really, really thankful that we were able to present Matt Kibbe to all of you today right here on the Shannon Joy Show. Thank you to all of our sponsors. We are up against the end of the show. Tomorrow, you and me, mano y mano, and I'm pretty sure I don't have a guest for Thursday either. So we're going to have a lot of us time. I'll take a lot of your questions and comments, and we have a lot to get to on the news of the day as well. So make sure you keep it tuned right here on the Shannon Joy channel on Rumble. Thank you to our sponsors, the folks over at the Satellite Phone Store, Colonial Metals Group. Of course, make sure that you go to Sleep Max. Perfect Sleep Max right now, a special just for the Joy audience. They're giving away free bottles of Sleep Max, Perfect Sleep Max from Perfect Origins. And you can go ahead and pop that URL. It's www.perfectorigins.com/SJS-PSM. That's a mouthful. We will put it up in the live chat if you guys want to see if you can grab that free bottle of Perfect Sleep Max. Thank you guys so much for being with us today. And our producers over at Died Suddenly, TJ, you did a great job. Same with you. Ed, we'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the Shannon Joy Show.